Hey everyone, what's going on? Back in April, I made a couple of videos about Dale Earnhardt Jr., and the first one was about the scripted death of his mother, who supposedly died from cancer, and the second one was a story that we got that Dale Earnhardt Jr. is going to be doing a tribute to his father, and he's going to drive in the Xfinity race in Darlington on August 31st, and he's going to be driving the same car that his father had debuted in 44 years before. And within these two videos, I mentioned how NASCAR is really important to the country of France. This year, on August 10th, it was the 227th anniversary of the fall of the French monarchy. And in this practice of coding numbers into words and phrases that I talk about every single day on my blog and on this YouTube channel, and how it's our mainstream media stories are scripted with this, our sports leagues are told history, and so on. You can check out some links in the description. But in this practice of coding numbers into words, French monarchy equals 227. And August 10th this year was the 227th anniversary of the fall of the French monarchy, and French Revolution also equals 227. And the French Revolution began because of an assembly by the Estates General that equals 227. And to top it off, if you look up Napoleon, Napoleon just so happened to be born on August 15th. And if you notice, August 15th is the 227th day of the year. And the reason it was important to NASCAR was because NASCAR was actually founded by a guy named Bill France. This guy named Bill France was the guy who founded NASCAR. I also mentioned how there's these other ciphers called Francis Bacon Gematria and Frank Baconus. And let me pull them up here. But they're important to France. Think about Francis Bacon, Frank Baconus, France. And it's also a Chinese pig year. Think about bacon in regards to, pigs and so on. And notice what NASCAR equals in these ciphers here. NASCAR equals 82, and in Frank Baconus it equals 111. And when you look this guy up, look, Bill France. He died at the age of 82, and he also died 111 days before his birthday, right? So they're absolutely significant. He died age 82, and it was 111 days before his birthday. And look what his name equals, Bill France. It also equals 82. So I knew there was something really important to France and so on. And when I typed in Darlington, I noticed that Darlington equaled 227. This number connected to France. Dale Earnhardt is going to be racing in the race at Darlington in just a couple weeks here, but it has this connection to France. Also, his father died at the age of 49 on the 49th day of the year. His mother died 4 months and 9 days before this race is going to happen. And 49 is, the 49th prime number is 227. So, what are the odds today on the 227th day of the year, which is also Napoleon's birthday? One of the major stories in the mainstream media is about Dale Earnhardt Jr. surviving a plane crash. What are the odds? Talking about how NASCAR is important to France with this number 227, and then on the 227th day of the year, Dale Earnhardt Jr. supposedly survives a plane crash. And look at this in Gematria. The story came 56 days before Dale Earnhardt's birthday. And NASCAR, if you noticed, NASCAR also equaled 56. NASCAR 56. 56 days before his birthday. Look at plane crash. Plane crash also equals 56. The plane crash also happened in Elizabethton. That equals 56. And ironically, if you write out 56 as words, 56, it just so happens to equal 44. And this number was absolutely important. Let me take away these Francis Bacon ones for a second, just so you can get a better understanding of what I'm showing here. We'll just have these four ciphers here. If you write out 56, it equals 44. Well, this is important because Dale Earnhardt Jr. is 44 years old right now. And his mother, she died from cancer. That equals 44. And, chemo equals 44. Cigarettes equal 44. The word kill equals 44. Her name is Brenda. That equaled 44. Her last name was Jackson. That equals 44. Notice Earnhardt equals 44 in gematria. When they told us that Dale Earnhardt Jr. was going to be driving the Hellman's car as the tribute to his father who debuted in that car 44 years ago, they told us that story 4 months and 4 days before he actually is going to be driving in that car. And it's in the Xfinity race. Xfinity equals 44. Also, with the S exception, if you write out Hellman's, it's not going to show it on here. But if you write out Hellman's, it also equals 44. Because in this practice of coding letters into numbers, in numerology, S is the 19th letter. So when you break it down, it's 1 plus 9 equals 10. So you have to break it down again to get a single digit. So it would be 1 plus 0. But since it does that, you don't have to break down S. So it can be a 10 or a 1. So Hellman's equals 44. Dale Earnhardt's 44 years old, 4 months and 4 days before he drives the car. And Dale Earnhardt Sr. drove the car 44 years before, just after his mom dies from cancer. I think he was 44. I mean, what are the odds of all that? This is what happens every single day in our mainstream media. And to top it all off, if you look up his mother's death, his mother died 194 days after his birthday, Dale Jr., and his real name is Ralph Dale Earnhardt Jr. That equals 194. And she dies 194 days after his 44th birthday of cancer. And what else is so interesting about this number 194? The anniversary of his father dying just so happens to come 194 days before he's going to do the tribute to his father in Darlington. I also mentioned in the videos how his mother died just before the race in Talladega, and Chase Elliott was the guy who won the race in Talladega this year. And I talked about how the movie Talladega Nights comes out on August 4th, which is an important number because in most parts of the world, including France, they write the date as 4/8. And Dale Earnhardt Sr. crashed into the wall. Wall equals 48. So does Donald Trump. The Mexican-American War came to an end in the year 48. Donald Trump won the election just after the Cleveland Indians were in the World Series and lost. Cleveland equals 48. They haven't won a World Series since 1948. And, much, much more that goes along with that narrative. But, when Dale Earnhardt Sr. died, the guy who won the race was Michael Waltrip. What are the odds, Crashes into the wall. Michael Waltrip. This year, NASCAR began on the 48th day of the year. The Daytona 500 began on the 48th day of the year. It's also the 48th season of the modern era of the Sprint Cup or the Cup Series. And NASCAR was also founded in the year 1948. So I knew there was something important to this, the date of 4/8 Talladega Nights coming out. And, of course, who won the race on that day? Chase Elliott won the race on the date of August 4th even. And Chase Elliott's important to the number 227 because his birthday is 49 days after Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s birthday, right? The 49th prime is 227. Chase Elliott is also one of the guys who sometimes drives that same car in the Xfinity races, right? What are the odds? And look at his name equals in gematria. Chase Elliott, 48, just like Wall. Talladega Nights, if you go watch that movie with Will Ferrell, the guy that he's always going against is the guy who is French, the France guy, right? Also, the day that he's going to be racing in Darlington, August 31st, that just so happens to be the anniversary of Princess Diana dying. And that's interesting because Princess Diana died in France. And if she would have still been the princess and whatever, if Queen Elizabeth dies, her son Prince Charles will become the new king. And in history, King Charles was the king during the English Civil Wars, but he actually married a girl from France, Henrietta Maria of France. And it was a big deal because she was a Catholic and, he was the son of King James, who was, the Protestant, right? So it was a big deal that he married a Catholic queen and so on, and she was from France. And really, since 2015, I've been following this narrative with how the royal family is synced up to this symbolism. And I don't want to re-explain it. I explained it in these other videos that I'll leave in the description, but just know the numbers 52 and 56 are important. And it's synced up to Princess Charlotte, who was born on 5/2 in the year 2015. And Queen Elizabeth became the queen in the year 52 at the age of 25. And there's a lot to do with Charlotte, North Carolina, and Michael Jordan, who owns the Charlotte team. And that's why the NBA All-Star game also fell on the 48th day of the year, which was Michael Jordan's birthday this year. But Michael Jordan was 52 years old that year. Now he's 56 years old. And this year on 5/6, we got the birth of another royal member named Archie. And Archie just so happens to equal 44. And he was born exactly 4 years and 4 days after Princess Charlotte. His mother also, Meghan Markle, who was born on August 4th, 4/8. And Prince Charles, he was important to the wall symbolism when Donald Trump had first won the election because he was born in the year 48. And on that same day of his birthday that year, just after Trump won the rigged selection, we got the closest supermoon since the year 1948. And in history, King Charles I, he died at the age of 48. Charles II equals 48. So there's this big connection with all of this to Prince Charles and much, much more. Even in 2015, it was really important to Kyle Busch, who had wrecked in the beginning of the year, and he ran into the wall and broke his leg on the 52nd day of the year, and he made his comeback. Can't remember what it was for sure. He made his comeback on 5/2, I believe it was, or 52 days later, or something of the sort. It was a bunch with 52. His name equals 52. And the All-Star race just so happens to be in Charlotte every year. That's important to Michael Jordan. But I'll explain some more of that as we move along here. I just wanted to point out there's this connection to the royal family with how all of this works. And let's just kind of backtrack here. So I talked about Bill France equaling 82, and he died at the age of 82, the guy who established NASCAR in the year 48. NASCAR equals 82. Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s birthday leaves 82 days in the year. Today, I've been talking a whole lot about how the Julian calendar is really important. And today is also 8/2 on the Julian calendar. So it's absolutely fitting. Darlington Raceway equals 82. Xfinity equals 82. I wrote that in here wrong. Chase Elliott doesn't equal 82, but his birthday is 82 days before the anniversary of Dale Earnhardt Sr. dying. And I'm just wondering, Pope Francis is really important to this narrative as well. And, the Catholic Church and the Church of England are really just one and the same. They want you to think that they're not. But King Henry VIII wanted to get a divorce and whatnot, and it basically created the Church of England, right? But what's interesting about that is the Pope that fully excommunicated him was also the Pope who was the Pope when the Jesuits were founded. And Pope Francis is the first Jesuit Pope, and much, much more, and there's a bunch of gematria connections and so on. Let me look at it really quick. I think King Henry VIII equals 191, right? And so does Queen Elizabeth II. Or I can't remember what it is. Maybe it's just Elizabeth II equals 191. And interesting, I didn't notice this before, but it equals 106, just like NASCAR. So I'll come back to that in a second, but Elizabeth II equals 191. The Jesuits are the Society of Jesus that equals 191. And there's a whole lot more, but just know that the Catholic Church and the Church of England, it's all planned, it's all created to make you think they're two different things, but really they're just controlled by the same people who control everything. So let's get back to the original post here. But the reason why was, so there's all these 82s. Pope Francis is 82 years old. And in regards to the Julian calendar, August 18th on the Julian calendar is the same as August 31st. So the same day as this Darlington race, it will be August 18th on the Julian calendar. And last year I was talking all about Pope Francis being important. He was 81 years old, and he turned 81 years old 8 months and 1 day before 81818. And the word Pope in Hebrew gematria equals 81. And it was all about bridges and a bunch. The Golden Gate Bridge equals 81. The Minnesota Bridge collapse on 8-1 that fell 81 feet. And the main trusses were 81 meters long. It supposedly took them 81 minutes to transport everyone to the hospital. It was in the 81st anniversary of the Golden Gate Bridge. And the word pontiff means bridge builder, pontiff, pope. And Pope Francis has repeatedly told Donald Trump that Christians don't build walls, they build bridges. So I'm just pointing out this date, August 18th, is seemingly important to what's going on here. The Julian calendar, it will be that same day here. And what else is interesting about it is that Dale Earnhardt Jr. was supposedly flying to Elizabethton, right? Think about that, with Queen Elizabethton, because he was going to go to the race in Bristol Motor Speedway on Saturday night. And that equals 266, just like Dale Earnhardt Jr., just like how Napoleon equals 266. Also in Satanic Gematria, NASCAR equals 266. Pope Francis is the 266th Pope. In 2015, he came to America on 9/22, which is the anniversary of the French Republic being established 227 years ago. When it comes up this year, it'll be 227 years ago. And a big deal with Pope Francis was that he went to the White House on the date of 9/23, and he came to America on his 923rd being the Pope. And, a whole bunch of stuff with it. The LeBron James was in that movie called Trainwreck, where the movie starts off with Amy Schumer's character 9 years old. The rest of the movie takes place 23 years later. LeBron James equals 923. It was after we got this train wreck in Philadelphia on May 12th of 2015. And it was all synced up to Pope Francis's visit, right? All of these 923 stuff. The World Series even had a power outage that came back on at 9:23, and the Royals ended up winning the World Series that year. And earlier in the year, some guy dressed up like Pope Francis and caught a home run ball of Salvador Perez. And I thought the Royals were going to win the World Series because of that. Then the Royals did win the World Series, and Salvador Perez just so happened to be the MVP of that World Series. But they were also playing the Mets, who play in Queens, and think about the Royals in regards to the royal family and much, much more. plus Kansas City equals 122, like Pope Francis. Earlier in the year, Golden State had won the NBA Finals. Golden State equals 122. They beat the Cleveland Cavaliers that equal 168, like Queen Elizabeth II, like New York Mets, who went on to lose in the World Series. So all synced up by the numbers. But Pope Francis became the Pope on 31313, which is the second prime, the sixth prime, and the sixth prime, like a lot like 266, right? And there's something to that. 31313, 81818. I've been talking a whole lot about how 91919 is seemingly a very important day to Queen Elizabeth, which I'll explain here in a minute, but it's just interesting, all these dates like that. 91919 this year is also Pope Francis's 6th year, 6th month, and 6th day of being the Pope. And in regards to Philadelphia in 2015, everything that we were talking about in 2015 was all about Philadelphia. There was a bunch of stuff. Pope Francis even left his trip from Philadelphia, or from America. He left from Philadelphia on the Jesuit anniversary. He's the first Jesuit pope, and later that night we got the fourth blood moon of the Tetrad, if you recall. And a big thing we were talking about was the book of Revelation and prophecy and how it was synced up to Philadelphia. And notice prophecy equals 666 in Jewish gematria. Think about how this gematria stems from Kabbalah, that has a belief that God created the world by merging the letter with the number with the word. Prophecy also equals 52, like that day that Princess Charlotte was born. This important number, the word Pope, equals 52 and 25 as well. Also 56, And look at NASCAR, 106, 56. So I'm going to show some more interesting things with that in a minute, but I know I'm getting off track here, but the day that Pope Francis arrived in America was on 9/22, which was the 223rd anniversary of the French Republic being established. And if you recall, in November, we got the Paris, France ISIS attacks, right? So just after Pope Francis came to America, it was actually 52 days later, we got an attack on Paris, France from ISIS, supposedly. And of course, ISIS equals 56, Paris, France equals 56, and much, much more. But that happened on Friday the 13th, that equals 223. And it was in the 223rd anniversary of the French Republic. And Napoleon's full name here, it equals 223. Friday the 13th was this important day with the Knights Templar because in the year, I think it was 1307, they were arrested, and pretty much it led to their demise. But they got arrested in France because the king basically betrayed them because he wanted to get out of debt, right? And the Knights Templar, even their symbol is the skull and bones, skull and crossbones. That equals 223. So there was something really important to all of that and how it works. And a big thing we're talking about with August 10th and August 11th this year was how it is important to the Third Temple. And the Knights Templar, at one point in time, they had stayed in the Al-Aqsa Mosque, and that's where they had kind of been like a headquartered, right? And it was built over Solomon's Temple, the first temple that was built. So there's something really important to how France is synced up into all of this. But we have a Friday the 13th coming up on 9/13 this year, which is also August 31st on the Julian calendar. So that Darlington race is really important. It's going to be a Friday the 13th on the Gregorian calendar, but on the Julian calendar, it's going to be August 31st. So hopefully that makes sense. It'll also be during the 205th anniversary of the Battle of Baltimore that happened in 1814, which is the year that Francis Scott Key wrote the national anthem. The 205th anniversary of that battle, right? And Philadelphia equals 205. Israel also equals 205. Knights Templar equal 205. Think about, Israel, Jerusalem, Knights Templar. Philadelphia comes from the book of Revelation. It's where they mention the key of David, the synagogue of Satan. If you read out the synagogue of Satan, that equals 223. So France is important. I feel like there's going to be another event in France. We already had the Notre Dame Cathedral burning that was all synced up to Garth Brooks, who played at Notre Dame. It's so odd, right? It was like 134 days after Garth Brooks had played there. And I think standing outside the fire equals 134, and people were standing outside the fire. I mean, it is such a joke. Also in 2015, we had that French train attack that was 2 months and 23 days before the ISIS attack. And once again, remember Trainwreck in Philadelphia, LeBron James in the movie Trainwreck. There was all kinds of train symbolism. That was even the year of Back to the Future Day. And remember how Marty McFly returns to the future on the train. Keep in mind that Marty McFly returned to the future on October 27th of 1985, which was the last time the Royals had won the World Series. And then the Royals went on to win that World Series in 2015 that began on October 27th. And, the Cubs got knocked out on Back to the Future Day. Like, I don't know how people don't pay attention, but that Paris, France ISIS attack on the Julian calendar, I remember pointing out it was Halloween. And if you've followed my videos for a while, I've been saying how Halloween, there's something really important to Halloween this year. Halloween, there's a number of things that are important to it. I don't want to re-explain it, but it's a day that I've been watching for. Halloween this year. And possibly it's a day synced up to Halloween, like from the Julian calendar, Maybe like October 18th, or I know there's something symbolic to Halloween and why it's important, but in regards to the royal family, look at this. If you go from the day that Queen Elizabeth became the queen to today, it's 190 days. And that's important because if you write out King Charles, it equals 190. And think about the year 2019. The 19th prime number is 67. That was Queen Elizabeth's 67th anniversary of being the queen, right? So right now she's currently in her 67th anniversary of being the queen. And this is the year 19, and notice what the word queen equals. The word queen equals 19. And think about how I'm talking about this date, 9/19/19, that is seemingly really, really important. And look at King Charles here. King Charles III. His name equals 91. And would you believe that the story came 91 days before Prince Charles's birthday, and also 9 months and 1 day after his last birthday? Also, Darlington Raceway equals 190. And this story came 190 days before the anniversary of NASCAR being founded. So it's all synced up to Prince Charles, King Charles. The word king equals 67, right? The 19th prime, 67. Queen Elizabeth's 67th anniversary. Queen equals 19. 9/19 is the 262nd day of the year. And that's why a long time ago in 2014, I was pointing it out in regards to Queen Elizabeth, because the word queen equals 26 and 62, reminding us of, 262. And she was born in the year 26, became queen on 2/6. She got coronated on 6/2. Just after she became the queen, she turned 26 years old. Well, oh, the odds, when the word queen equals 26 and 62. It's also interesting in regards to the 91 stuff up here. In 2015, I was talking all about the number 91 and how it seemed to be an elimination number, a death type number, and also the number 56. 56 and 91 in 2015, I mentioned numerous times that they seemed like they were numbers in regards to elimination and death. So, 91. And I bring that up because Dale Earnhardt's going to be racing at the Xfinity race on 8/31, but the Monster Energy Cup Series race is going to be in Darlington on the date of 9/1. So something interesting. Princess Diana and Francis Bacon, or one of them ciphers, her name equals 262. And her death was all synced up to uh, Queen Elizabeth and whatnot. Prince Charles will be 71 years old this year, and Diana was born on 7/1, and her birthday just happened to be 7 months and 17 days after Prince Charles's birthday. And then he got divorced and she died, and then he got remarried to Princess Camilla, who was born on 7/17, and Diana died 132 days after Queen Elizabeth's 71st birthday. And look at Princess Diana, just type it out. Well, put my caps lock on here. Princess Diana, 132. She died 132 days after Queen Elizabeth's 71st birthday. Diana's birthday's on 7/1. It's all synced up to these 71s. Also, the House of Windsor was established on 7/1717 in 1917, right? 7/1717. And when Queen Elizabeth dies, it most likely won't be the House of Windsor anymore. It'll be the House of Mountbatten Windsor. Also, in regards to Prince Charles, I talked about how Charlie Hebdo happened in 2015, and it happened on January 7th, 1/7, or also 7/1. And think about it, Charlie, Prince Charles. Just after the Paris attacks, they told us that Charlie Sheen had HIV, and he was on 2.5 Men. And can't remember how it worked. Something to do with, well, the word Charlie equals 56, but the word men, I think it was men equaled 14, and if you divided it by 2.5, it was 5.6 or something like that. So there was all kinds of connections to it. I've also mentioned a whole lot about this number 310 and how it was important to August 10th and all kinds of things. There's all kinds of things that are connected to it, but I'm not going to re-exploit it all. You can check out, I'll leave a playlist in the description, but today was 3 months and 10 days after the date of 5/6, and it just so happens to be 310 days after Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s birthday. 310, 3 months and 10 days. The Charlie Hebdo attack was 310 days before the ISIS attack. Also, there's another Friday the 13th on December 13th this year, which, in France they read it as 13/12. It just reminds me of how the Knights Templar completely dissolved in the year 1312. Possibly something significant to that. A big thing too, so these 2 years are really important. In 2015, we were really programmed with the date of 9/23. Like everywhere on YouTube, there's tons of truth people talking about this date of 9/23 and the importance to the 4 blood moons and so on. It's really just programmed everywhere. Nothing like no big event happened, but it was very symbolic to many things that were going on for the rest of the year, such as the Paris, France attack, right? And this year, the big date we noticed that was really, really important was August 11th, right? August 10th, I talked about a ton, but August 11th was really the big day that was kind of programmed into people's brains, and they were seeing connections everywhere to August 11th, right? And what's interesting about it is that if you go from August 15th and you go 52 days later, it takes you to October 6th, right? A lot like 106. And look, when you write out NASCAR, it equals 106. And remember how I was talking about 923 being important to the year 52, right? So 52 days. If you go from August 15th, well, I put the same picture in here twice. But if you go from August 11th to October 6th, it's 56 days, right? This number important to NASCAR. NASCAR equals 56. NASCAR equals 106. And remember, the Paris attacks were 52 days after Pope Francis had came to America and so on, right? Pope Francis, or it was after 52 days with the end date after 923. And remember, the word Pope equals 52 and also 56, right? 52, 56. The word president also equals 52, and with the S exception, president equals 56. Think about how he went to the White House on 923 at 923 in the morning. ISIS also equals 52 at 56. And I'm just thinking, if you go from August 11th to September 23rd, it's 43 days. And once again, that's interesting because NASCAR equals 43, right? So it's synced up to the date of 10/6, 52 days and 56 days away from August 11th. And then, to 923, it's 43 days. So there's something really important. And it's also 1 month and 12 days before 923, which 112 is the emergency dialing code in France, right? And most parts of the world, 112 is the emergency dialing code. Plus, 10/6 is that day important to Philadelphia and Michael Jordan, who first retired on 10/6. And Michael Jordan was important because the original capital of the country, Jordan, was called Philadelphia, and until the year 106 AD, and then it was destroyed by earthquakes. And then we're getting the story today in Tennessee. They kept making sure that we knew that it was in Tennessee that equals 106. Kyle Busch was important to that Michael Jordan stuff. His name equals 106. And just trying to piece this all together. That's why I thought it was interesting when I noticed earlier that Elizabeth II also equals 106. The word prophecy equals 106 and 666. So, also interesting in regards to the Julian calendar, 923 on the Julian calendar just so happens to be 10/6 on the Gregorian calendar, right? So, a very interesting day. I'm going to be watching out for that day. There's definitely something very symbolic to this day right here, 10/6. And, once again, maybe it's something with 923, but that just seems a little too obvious. October 6th. I don't know. It's really, really, really synced up. October 6th to NASCAR. There's a NASCAR race on that day as well. So maybe there's something symbolic about that NASCAR race. Maybe there will be a crash or something major in that NASCAR race. I'm not sure, but I just got my eye on this date here. So also another interesting thing, I looked up Elizabethton, and it's interesting when you're reading through the town. It talks about how Herbert Hoover, the president during the stock market crash, he made his only Southern campaign stop at Elizabethton and delivered his nationally broadcast October 6th election stump speech, right? So he even gave a speech on October 6th in Elizabethton. And think about, how Wall Street is important to the wall symbolism, and Donald Trump and Dale Earnhardt Sr. crashing into the wall. So, very interesting, Just makes me wonder. HH, I don't know. And then he gives a speech on 10-6, right? And, in regards to 10-6 and Philadelphia being destroyed by earthquakes, right? The capital of the country, Jordan, being destroyed by earthquakes after 106 AD. It just reminds me of all the 44 from the very beginning, and the word earthquake just so happens to equal 44 in Gematria. Plus, Elizabethton too. When I was looking it up, I didn't write it in my blog, but the first thing it talks about right on here is how it was the secessionist North Carolina state of Franklin, right? And doesn't necessarily have to mean anything, but it's just interesting it would even mention this, right? State of Franklin. And since 2015, I've been talking about the Ben Franklin Bridge being important to Philadelphia, Philadelphia being important to earthquakes, and the day of that race in Darlington, it just so happens to also be the anniversary of the worst ever East Coast earthquake that was recorded in Charlotte, South Carolina in 1886. And I'm thinking about how October 6th is the day, I believe, that leaves, let me type it out really quick, but I think it's the day that leaves 86 days in the year. 86 days in the year, so, something interesting. Charleston earthquake. That's it. August 31st, the worst ever recorded earthquake east of the Rockies, right, in the United States. So, been talking about that for a number of years and how it synced up to Apollo Creed in the movie Rocky, who Rocky also, Apollo Creed died on this date, and it was synced up to the movie Happy Gilmore, where that same guy, Carl Weathers, plays Chubbs, and then Happy learns how to putt on the Earthquake golf course with the building that looks like the Comcast Center that has the black cube on the top in Philadelphia that represents the New Jerusalem that is important to the Third Temple. So, and think about prophecy with that day. It's an interesting day. Also, in regards to Franklin, right? What I was talking about in 2015, a big thing was how I thought there was going to be some deaths within NASCAR. And in the month of August, it wasn't the Sprint Cup, but there was all kinds of stuff with racing and deaths. And when they gave us that Bridgewater shooting that was synced up like crazy, the band Disturbed comes out with the song, um, the music video where they mimicked the movie They Live that stars Roddy Piper. Then Roddy Piper dies. And in that film, they go and they shoot up the news crew, and then the news crew supposedly gets shot up in Roanoke, Virginia, right? But when they gave us this thing, they wrote on here Franklin County Bridgewater Plaza. And I was just talking about how if you read it down, it says Franklin Bridgewater, right? And on the bottom of the screen, of course, they are showing us a crash and some guy in NASCAR type stuff, I can't remember what his name was, had died in Pennsylvania. So on that same day, there was a NASCAR death, and then it was Franklin Bridgewater. So that's why I mentioned that it was interesting in regards to Elizabethton even mentioning the state of Franklin, right? And possibly, a stretch or something, but I mean, the state of Franklin even 82 degrees west, which syncs up to NASCAR. So does Elizabethton. So I guess we'll leave it there. I just wanted to show a bunch of interesting stuff, and what are the odds that I'm talking about NASCAR being synced up to France and the number 227 like crazy, and then on the 227th day of the year, we get this story about Dale Earnhardt supposedly crashing a plane, and none other than Elizabethton. And I mentioned how it's synced up to the royal family and a bunch of other things. So, have a good one. Peace. We'll see what happens.